Our next award is being presented by Tony Severo from the Catholic Guild for the Blind.
This is my second conference. I blasted the first one, and this will be even better. Last year, for those of you who were here, I presented an award that was nominated by a colleague of mine named Stephanie Howell. And I had never worked with the organization or met anyone there, and I had even received the award. So that was definitely an interesting experience. So this year is definitely a step up. And as I see it, although the award goes to the organization that encompasses what it means that have the Breaking Barriers Award, I see it also as a great deal of interplay between the client, the placement specialist, and in this case also the commission counselor. And I want to cite Guadalupe Santiago Mirage. Guadalupe had sent me a job opening that she had spotted, and I looked at it and I said, wow, this seems really interesting for my client, who is here today as well, Mr. Derick Pollit. And it was for a job working with the Jericho Project, which I'll fill you in detail what they're about. Mr. Kevin Driscoll is here to represent the Jericho Project. And I looked at it and I said, well, this really fits it, except it required a lot of going to people's houses to provide case management, and because he's visually impaired, it could be somewhat problematical. So I did some research on their website, and I found 3 positions that I thought were perfect. Career counselor for veterans. And he, being a veteran and having a master's in voc rehab, I thought it was perfect. So I drafted a specialized letter. I didn't deny that he was visually impaired. I actually played that up because he did all the great stuff. And within 2 days, they called him. He gets interviewed by like 2 or 3 people in HR. The next day, it's like several supervisors. And then finally, he has a meeting with the executive director. So a lot is involved in the process, as you can see. And the executive director said, Derick, do you use JAWS or Zoom text? And that's when I knew that he found the right place to be. So to give you a synopsis of the Jericho Project, there's probably many of you here that even though they've been around for 31 years now, haven't heard of it, they provide housing and life-changing services to homeless and at-risk individuals and families in New York City. And from their genesis in 1983, it started with 3 Episcopal churches answered a call to help address New York City's burgeoning homeless crisis. Today, with over 50,000 adults and children sleeping in New York City homeless shelters every night, the Jericho Project has stayed true to its mission to end homelessness at its roots. They also have a very exciting veterans program that Kevin will give you a brief synopsis about as well. So, in the synopsis, just as the Jericho Project have been in the forefront in the fight against homelessness and addressing major problems of our veterans, they exhibited equally open mind when it comes to employing people with disabilities. So when they hired my client, Derick Pollit, as a career counselor for their veterans program, and Kevin will tell you, his visual impairment was never an issue. All they looked at were his skills, his motivation, and his commitment to the cause. So when I received the call finally from the IT department requesting what version of JAWS needed to be downloaded, and that they were paying for it, which made the commission very happy, I knew then that my client, now a former client as of 1 week, April 4th was Derick's last day, found a home. So it's my honor to nominate the Jericho Project to be president.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our motto of the Jericho Project is off the streets and on with life. I couldn't think of a more suiting motto because that's exactly what this opportunity was for me. As both a veteran and a person who's visually impaired, this gave me an opportunity to put my life back together. And I'd just like to say this is a truly remarkable organization because what we're doing for veterans is basically changing their lives. We have people who are coming back from the Iraq Wars with PTSD and a number of other serious impairments. And Jericho is with them every step of the way. And as a career counselor, I'm greatly honored to be a part of that effort. Mr. Driscoll has made that all possible, and I'd like to thank him and the Jericho Project.
Yeah, Tony, for having us here. I guess I have to echo some of the other speakers here and say there's a little bit of, I don't feel we did anything particularly special. He was one of the most qualified candidates, if not the most qualified, and he was ready to go right away and to jump right into things. And so the decision wasn't really complicated. It was more a matter of the logistics of figuring out a start date and figuring out when to work. At Jericho Project, one of the things we do, we are not a homeless shelter, we are a step out of it, we're permanent housing. We are to help those people, like if you read the New York Times thing about little Dasani, to help that more than Yankee Stadium full of New Yorkers that are currently living in New York City shelters. To help the more than 20,000 children who are living in New York City shelters. We are long-term stable housing for people, but we don't want to just warehouse people forever. And so I work with the group of people that helps people get employment, because employment and self-sufficiency through that part of things is one of the best ways for people to really be able to be on their own and live their own lives and not be constantly looking for an agency to help them out, but to be able to reach, as we say, their maximum level of self-sufficiency, whatever is going to work out best for them. And I think someone like Derick is a wonderful example of this, because he's able to talk about his own difficulties, he's able to talk about his own situations, and he's able to talk about overcoming his own adversities and to be an inspiration for the people he works with. And so for that, I think he's a wonderful employee. I look forward to many more years working with him, and thank you all again.